Hello, this is the Growth League podcast. My name is Caleb Clark, and my mission for this show is pretty simple. It's to learn from marketers on how they're playing the great game of marketing leadership, their ideas, experiences, perspective, wins and losses, and the playbook that they've established over time. Listen, there's more than one way to lead a marketing team and a marketing function. So if you're a VP, a CMO, director, or someone aspiring to fill one of these marketing leadership roles in the future, tune in to learn from some of the best in the business.
I mean, we're living in this time where there is so much digital marketing activity that there's just so much data. And trying to understand what data should we be looking at as a marketing team, marketing leaders, as well as what's important to sales. So things that we may be looking at in terms of, did this post do really well on LinkedIn because it was a video and the theme? That's really important for us to know so we continue to, build our following and engage with our followers. That might not be as interesting to our executive leadership. They just want to know, how many folks, did we actually then, pass along to sales as more of an opportunity. So for us, I think it's sort of finding the right balance. What are metrics that we should be doing and finding, and how do you do that in as automated of a way as possible? So you're not reinventing the wheel each time with what metrics you're looking for your team as well as leadership, and not spending so much time. So you're taking time away from doing the actual marketing function to look at data. So I think just the overwhelming amount of data is a challenge, and then determining, who wants to see what, and, how do you communicate that in a way that people around you that are not marketing subject experts, that they get.
My guest today, Amy Sitnick. She is the Vice President of Marketing at Greenphire. Amy, glad to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Caleb. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's kick things off. You're in King of Prussia. Never knew that was a place, but I looked it up after, and you're 88 degrees to my 40 degrees today. So it's good we're here. I can feel the warmth online at least. So what I want to know, I want to kick it off by saying or asking you, in your words, what would you define the marketing function for Greenfire's mandate to be? At the end of the day, when all the dust settles, what are you guys responsible for doing?
Great question. So Greenfire's ultimate mission in marketing is to ensure that clients and prospects all around the world are familiar with Greenfire's value proposition, and that they think of Greenfire first when it comes to improving their patient experience in clinical trials.
Great. So what have you defined for yourself and for your team? Maybe it's measured formally, or maybe it's more gut felt. How do you know whether or not you did a good job on any given day?
So it's all about engagement. Are we bringing the right folks to any of our marketing channels? So whether that's the website, whether that's a webinar, whether we have folks at trade shows, are we bringing the right folks in to have meaningful conversations with our sales teams? So ultimately, that's somebody who is a client who maybe is just using one of our solutions and learning about something else, or somebody who's brand new to working with Greenfire. How are we helping to sort of expose what really is our value and helping to sort of nudge them down the sales process?
Gotcha. So with that, can you talk a little bit about the relationship that you have facilitated and continue to nurture between your team and these sales folks you're talking about? Is it a collaborative back and forth, or is it kind of a handoff to this? Tell me about the unique nature there.
So I feel like this is something that's a little bit different in each sort of organization, isn't it? In terms of how marketing interacts with a sales organization. And that's one of the things I really appreciated in working here at Greenfire is, we do sit within the same sort of commercial or revenue generating umbrella. So we work really closely with our partners in sales. We look at, who are the right companies that we should be targeting, and what products we should be targeting those companies with, since we do have 4 different solutions available to the market. So trying to sort of prioritize what the message is by channel. And our function really is, how do we make sure that we're bringing in leads and then helping to do, cold prospecting within respective channels. So we're handing over, really defined opportunities for the sales teams.
Right.
So they're not having to spend a whole lot of time going out and finding net new leads. or individual contacts within their respective organizations. We're helping sort of bring those
Right.
sales ready opportunities to the table.
Gotcha. And there still is an expectation for the sales team to be doing their own prospecting on top of what you're facilitating from a funnel standpoint.
For sure, for
Okay.
sure. So marketing as well as our market development team work hand in hand to help maximize what we're doing from a marketing perspective. So whether that is a trade show, optimizing a landing page, driving traffic to those things, webinars and such, our role is how do we, generate traffic and ultimately get people to convert, sign up for things,
Yeah.
and, then continue to sort of engage and, validate whether or not they might have the
Right.
budget or authority to purchase the solutions such as ours. And so we're sort of driving that interest at the top of the funnel and then sort of convert that over to the sales teams. Sales teams also are responsible for sort of, nurturing the relationships within their own organizations.
Right.
So perhaps sending, email templates that we might provide to them,
Right.
about a new piece of thought leadership or, announcing new solution functionality, things like that. Continuing trying to set up meetings and conversations with folks within with their client companies.
Gotcha. So on one hand, you're driving pipeline. On the other hand, you are mobilizing the sales team with different collateral or ideas or templates so that they can continue to nurture.
Absolutely. Yeah. And,
Got it.
I like to think of marketing really as the sales rep that's always on,
Right.
especially since we're in a global, business. Clinical trials happen all around the world, and we work with, companies in Australia and Poland, the United States, and South America. So we really need to make sure that our marketing presence is engaging people all over the place. And that's really a value, I think, of marketing and how we can complement sales reps.
Right.
So they're able to have educated consumers once they get to those folks.
Gotcha. Great. In being a bit vulnerable, what's the biggest challenge you're facing right now as a marketing leader? The thing that maybe keeps you and your team up a little bit at night. Hopefully it doesn't keep you up too long, but
So I can think right now, I mean, we're living in this time where there is so much digital marketing activity that there's just so much data. And trying to understand what data should we be looking at as a marketing team, marketing leaders, as well as what's important to sales.
mm,
So things that we may be looking at in terms of, oh, well, did this post do really well on LinkedIn because it was a video and the theme? That's really important for us to know so we continue to, build our following and engage with our followers. That might not be as interesting to our executive leadership. They just want to
right,
know, how many folks, did we actually then, pass along to sales as more of like, an opportunity. So for us, I think it's sort of finding the right balance. What are metrics that we should be doing and finding? And, how do you do that and, as automated of a way as possible? So you're not reinventing the wheel each time with what metrics you're looking for
right,
your team as well as leadership and not spending so much time. So you're taking time away from doing the actual marketing function to look at data. So I think
right,
just the overwhelming amount of data is a challenge. And then determining, who wants to see what
right.
and, how do you communicate that in a way that people around you that are not marketing subject, experts that they get.
Right, right. So with that, all that mountain of data, plus I'm assuming a laundry list of things to do. Yeah, you told me that there's a lean marketing team on in the organization. How do you navigate the challenges and the realities of capacity constraint and perhaps in certain cases expertise constraint when you need to fulfill a mandate? How do you explore what's your relationship with capacity constraint?
It is hard, because you want to lay out a calendar of, all right, here's what we're going to do for the year, but you want to be nimble too, right?
Right,
And when you're a small marketing team, you can't do everything and do everything well. So you have to sort of shift things along and reprioritize as you go. So I think communication is super important, meeting with your teams and saying, all right, here's what we have on tap for this week. Is this actually going to happen? What's new? What are we hearing from? So for us, we were hearing, for example, that, our clients and our prospects were really interested in this idea of data triggered payments. And that basically just means compliance. There's a big challenge for our clients that they may spend a lot of money on at-home e-diaries
right,
when somebody is involved in a clinical trial. And there's a fall off when someone's not coming into a clinic to actually do that activity.
Right.
And so if you can incentivize them with a payment following doing that activity virtually, it can increase your response rate, your data completion, and then hopefully, the completeness of your trial. So all of that sort of, clinical trials have to just sort of say, this was an emerging topic that we
Right.
had to then reprioritize some other things just to ensure that people didn't have too much on their plate and then able to sort of like make sure that we're communicating things that are really timely and important to our clients and not just what's important to us. And then also you can also work smarter. There are ways to sort of use things, and whether they are things like an AI generated system to help with content creation. So
Right.
we use a webinar platform which is really slick called Goldcast.
Okay.
Goldcast provides us the ability to turn webinar recordings into blogs.
Oh,
So we may, find ways to like work smarter by leveraging, sort of AI-based sort of transcription embedded in our webinar platforms. So even though that topic may have been really important to us and we want to write content about it, we don't have to spend as much time actually
right.
doing the original work of it. So it's
Yeah.
a little bit about, how do you reprioritize as well as look for new technology systems that can help your sort of teams be more productive
Right.
when they're sort of creating content once, be able to populate it in lots of different ways.
Right. Well, that's a great tip. And I think that most marketing leaders have some capacity of, or some level or varying degree of capacity constraint. I think you've given a couple tools and ways of thinking about it, working smarter, not harder, doubling the impact with half the effort type thing,
Yeah.
and really getting focused on what is the most important thing. How can we say no to everything else that seems important on the surface, but perhaps isn't? That's good. Thank you for that. I want to shift to a topic that we talked a little bit about in our intro call, and that is the importance and maybe in some cases the challenge or the difficulties around facilitating good internal communication. So there's your external stakeholders and who you build campaigns for, but that's all for naught if there's not buy-in, integration, collaboration, participation across the organization. How have you explored this as part of your journey?
Absolutely. And it's absolutely a group effort. It's not, a marketing leader on their own. It is your entire team sort of working together to sort of share the good word, of the things that you're doing. I like to think, that marketing can be a unifying center for an organization, because the things that you're talking about are things that generally make the organization feel really proud. So and that may be a little bit pie in the sky, but I do think that the things that we're coming out with are exciting. It's the reasons why someone will want to buy your technology or whatever your service is. And so what we've done internal communication wide to ensure that employees are sort of familiar is we think about new product launches, and we ensure that, Alex on our team is responsible for, working with our product team on internal lunch and learns. So
Right.
if a new solution announcement is coming, that he would work directly with the product owner to ensure that there's a lunch and learn, that with the lunch and learn that there's going to be materials available following that with either release notes or a brochure. And then we post everything on our internal knowledge management platform, which is called
Yeah.
Fireworks because we branded it and it's fun.
Oh, nice.
So that's just one example of like when it's like a big release that we do like a special launch. We also have Slack internally within our organization. And just so we're not over emailing folks, we post, anytime something new goes live, whether it's a blog or an important LinkedIn post, or if we're presenting at a trade show, we announce that in our Slack channel, like, hey, this is happening, so everyone knows. And it's also a great place that if internal folks have questions, they can come to the marketing team or ask other folks. Like, for example, do we have any collateral around oncology clinical trials? They can ask that. Everyone else can sort of group jump in on there.
Right.
And something else that we did within the last couple of months, which I think has been really great, has been that we do a marketing meetup. And so like maybe once a quarter or every 6 months, we do a breakfast meeting. We bring in donuts, we hold it hybrid, and we give everyone on the team the opportunity to present. Here's what marketing is working on right now. And so they hear from people about thought leadership, trade shows and webinars, email campaigns, other things
Excellent.
that are happening with regards to focus groups, like the breadth. And then what I hear about that is wow, I didn't know that Holly did that, or wow, your team does a lot of stuff.
Right.
So it also helps give your team, presentation experience, gets them to meet people cross-functionally within your organization.
Mhm.
And, it also is just something that we can share up with our leadership. Here's, what's happening from a marketing perspective for the next couple of months.
That's awesome. Have
Yeah.
these marketing meetups, when you are presenting sort of what have we been doing, what is the reason why, has that act influenced greater participation and idea flow from internal teams? It's almost like they're hearing, it seems like this is an open team that's open to our suggestions, but when they can exemplify or see exemplification of it, they're like, oh, okay, well, I can tap into a whole compartment of my world that these guys might. Has that been
Exactly.
happening?
Yeah, like, wow, I didn't know you were involved with client feedback. I would love to hear what X client said, or you know what, you really should be writing blogs or FAQs about this. This is a really important topic and hot in the industry right now.
Right.
And I know I can go to Jordan for that. So that's been really
Yeah.
great.
What initiated these? Was there a feeling or some feedback from the organization, like what the hell is marketing doing? Or what initiated this? Is it something that you borrowed from an experience in the past?
It's definitely not something that I have borrowed a lot of things
Yeah.
from other marketing roles I've had at other organizations. This has not been that. I think this was a team idea, if
Okay.
I think back on it. And it's really just, I think that it's so important in a hybrid world now. We are, headquartered in King of Prussia,
Right. Yeah.
Pennsylvania, as you noted, but we have, colleagues that work in California and in the UK and in Italy. And we really want to make sure that everyone feels connected to this organization
Mm.
and that we can be part of that glue. And HR has a really important role with that too, in terms of, here's what's happening organization wide. But I do think that, marketing has a role to play with the brand and culture. And, that we can sort of play our part as well in terms of making people feel connected, whether they're in an office or working remotely, that, that marketing is here to sort of showcase their work and that we need them and their ideas
Mm.
to, come up with the next great campaign idea.
Do you think that when you make this invitation to people to be collaborative and participate, do you notice that there's a reduction of what is marketing doing comments, and how has that shown up for you?
So I have to say that one of the reasons why I do love it, this organization, is I've had very little of like, what is marketing doing? Because I think people recognize that we do a lot,
Yeah.
for the size team, but this does absolutely make that transparent. I think that where we need to work on, and has been my mission in this quarter, has been more transparency around results, not just about
Mhm.
activity, but really more about sort of like, how are you measuring success and how are you communicating that
Right.
activity? So
And
that's important.
success in the form of number of qualified opportunities, closed revenue. Like what would a typical update include when you're trying to tell the story of results?
Yeah. So if we sort of think about marketing and the evolution of our discipline, a couple of years ago when we got into this, it was really focused a lot on the in-person, so trade shows, public relations was, very important and it remains important. We want to make sure that people continue to see our organization as a thought leader, as an innovator, there to provide education about sort of emerging trends and how we're helping to solve sort of complex business problems. But we really want to make sure that it's progressing, like you said, in terms of opportunity. So as I mentioned before, there's no shortage of data,
Yeah.
right? So what we want to be able to show is, are our online communities growing? Are they growing with the right types of personas? So if we're seeing that our LinkedIn is growing, to over 10,000 followers, is it people that are just looking for jobs, or are we seeing it more as a qualified audience of folks that, are really potential buyers or clients of ours that want to see that? So we want to be able to sort of provide that. So we're sort of giving insights. Okay, not only are we passing along qualified leads and opportunities, which are going to lead to, increased revenue, but we're building a community
Yeah.
virtually, and then we're converting traffic, to our website. So we're converting away from maybe a really more difficult to measure,
Yeah.
marketing function to something that's much more digitized today. And so we're able to see, okay, here are the companies that are coming to our website. They are X persona. They're hitting these pages, so
Right.
again, that, it's not just people hitting careers or culture pages, even though we really do want to make sure we're bringing more
Yeah.
talented folks on board, but that we're able to see that they're hitting request a demo, they're hitting solutions, high intent pages, and then we're continuing to sort of look at things that would measure things like intent to buy.
Gotcha.
So how are we sort of quantifying not just the bottom of the funnel marketing stuff, but things that are meaningful before it gets there? And
Right.
so if we're able to sort of say,
Right.
listen, we are bringing in a lot of new leads, but we're also driving a lot more traffic, and that we're not just sending lots of emails, but these the people that have hit our website as a result, and they're sort of doing these kinds of things, that we're showing really that we're driving the right kind of behavior within
Right.
prospect.
Right. When you're in these, maybe it's a marketing meetup or some other form of internal comms, are you not only making people aware, but is there anything specific that you're asking them to take action on, or like what is the call to arms, if there is one, sound like?
Caleb, these are great questions. So this is more and more what we want to do. And we've been really proud, I think, within Greenphire that people are proud to work here. They're happy to share things, but we want to continue to incentivize that behavior. So
Right.
one thing that we did institute, my colleague, Heather, who leads our distribution and design function within marketing, put in place, a mini contest of sorts.
Oh, nice.
So if we think about what we want people to be doing, we want to make sure that people aren't just like, following us on LinkedIn, but they're sharing content, that
Right.
they're interacting with, industry peers and prospective clients. They're responding to, what we're putting out there. So that's an example of something we might say, hey, when you come to our, online Slack or a marketing meetup, one of the things that we're actually do is like and share and comment on LinkedIn, and then you're going to get entered into like an employee engagement contest.
Gotcha.
So that's one thing. The other thing is we do really try to incentivize people to bring case study opportunities to us,
Yeah.
as well as, just opportunities for co-marketing, ideas for new content. So we had heard from our product and operations team and said, we really need something easy that's going to help communicate, the
Right.
value of our technology to researchers.
Yeah.
And we said, well, why don't we create a video? And they're like, that's great. So we worked together to create a video, and then we translated that video and had it re-recorded in like 10 different languages.
Wow.
And that all came from an idea from somebody within our operations department.
Oh, that
First and
those.
foremost, we're always asking for ideas. So
Yeah.
we're not the ones who have them, they're the ones on the ground,
Yeah.
So we always say that our best ideas come from our colleagues.
Right. You're curating it from the experience and expertise held within. I got to
Exactly.
imagine that that does create a ton of, people support what they help create. And when they feel like they've had a hand in creating it, there's an aliveness to it. I think that's
Yeah.
great. What, if anything, might you offer as a word of advice to a marketing leader that's having a very difficult time creating any sort of internal integration or communication? Is it to go all the way to having a marketing meetup, or is there anything kind of bullets first before a cannonball that you might recommend to get the ball rolling? Like, we don't know what marketing's doing. We don't care. We don't want to participate. Where are the results? If that's the environment, what might you recommend to get the ball going in that regard?
I feel for that person. I mean, I actually take that back. I mean, I still feel for the person, but I had a very challenging experience a couple companies ago.
Okay.
My head of marketing was let go. It was very traumatic for everyone who had reported to her. And when I met the person who led sales, and at the time I was leading social media as my full-time job,
Yeah.
and I went to him and I said, I was all excited, and I said, all right, here's what I do. And I presented him with this one pager and my plan, and all full of hope and excitement for the new person. And he just looked at me and said, I don't understand this, and I don't know what you do here. And I was heartbroken, because I
Right.
put 110% into my job and very passionate about what I do. And so in that scenario, I went back to my desk and I cried, and I hugged my coworkers and I said, I'm probably going to be let go. And then I slept it off. I said, you know what? They hired me here for a reason. This organization hired marketing, and social media marketing was my role at the time. They hired me here for a reason. They wanted to make sure that they were leveraging, a channel that was emerging, that they wanted to, create more brand awareness and, make sure they were part of an industry buzz.
Yeah.
That didn't go away. So I share that story because it's not always sunshine and rainbows, and you can convert someone who is difficult. So what I did is I said, okay, you don't understand what this is that I've been doing over here. Tell me what keeps you up at night.
Right.
And I can pivot my strategy to meet your goals. And so for him, as being a head of sales, he was really interested in new business and being able to find new leads and find them quickly. And so I said, well, you know what? That's not this strategy. We should bring in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and we should arm the sales reps with being able to sort of find new folks, connect with folks, and be able to sort of nurture relationships online.
Right.
So important nowadays. And so in that scenario, I would, offer, this advice to anybody who may be struggling within their organizations to sort of find out, what are the business problems that those folks or those organizations, are struggling with.
Yeah.
And have them really think about like what they can do to make a difference.
Totally.
Because marketing does touch the entire customer life cycle.
Yeah.
So if it's retention, maybe you're thinking about doing focus groups, you're thinking about email newsletters, you're thinking about, client events, those kinds of things. But if it's something else, if it's net new leads, then you think more about, an advertising strategy and thinking a little bit more about that.
Totally. I think that's awesome. And, whether or not it actually manifests the way you've dreamt it up, simply by asking the question, what matters to you? I think right there you've built a bond and at least a different level of buy-in integration that can be leveraged. So,
Absolutely.
I think that's great. A few rapid fire questions here. What would you claim to be your superpower as a marketing leader? Something that maybe colleagues would say, this is Amy.
I mean, I think it's optimism. I mean, I think that like I'm all in, in terms of company mission and just wanting to go and do, and I'm inspired by the company's work, and I think that I instill like, excitement with folks around me just because of how I sort of present myself.
That's awesome. Yeah. Create that energy. Not easy to do a lot of the times, but it's a default if you can show up that way. That's great. Second one, this was a question left for you from my previous guest. What was, whether it's in your current role or in roles in the past, what was your favorite job ever and why?
Besides my current job?
Could be your current job. What was your favorite job so far from first entering the work scene in any capacity? It could be marketing. It could be unrelated to marketing. What's been your favorite job and why was it?
My first job, I really loved. I managed the Sister Cities program for the city of Philadelphia.
Okay.
So I did cultural and business exchanges with 10 cities abroad. And so for me, I sort of an accidental marketer. I didn't go to college for marketing. I was a Spanish major in international relations. And so my first job out of school was working with all these really inspirational folks, for all these different cultural exchanges. And I just loved it. And, it was nonprofit. So I sort of left and sort of meandered, and I found like lots of different experiences, whether, it was doing marketing and social media marketing, content marketing, and that led me here to today. I mean, I feel like I love Greenphire because I am able to, work with people all around the world. I love that it's creative. I like that it's in the tech space. I have the coolest team.
Yeah.
I'm inspired by our clients, who are really working to sort of enable better healthcare for people around the world. So it would take a lot for me to leave this one.
That's awesome that you found your spot. That's great. In a question from now, I'm going to ask you to leave a question for our next guest, so you can start.
I'm going to think about it.
But before I ask that, my last formal question is: if you had a magic wand as a marketing leader and you could instantly zap one area of your marketing system and turn it into industry leading, is there something that comes to mind? Just a flick of the wand. It could be super tactical. It could be more team and cultural based. It could be the penetration of a new market. It could be the removal of a challenger barrier that has been disallowed you from hitting the targets you want to as readily and consistently as you'd like to. So anything from tactical to more strategic.
I think right now everyone's job is doing marketing operations and analytics. Like I would love to have, a system or person, a more concerted effort at looking at data on the regular and making sure that all the systems are connected to the best possible way. We've been really sort of intent in terms of like, how do we make sure that, our email system is embedded within our CRM, which is connected to our webinar platform and, survey tool, but just really making sure, are those things all operating correctly?
Right.
And having a little bit more hands-on with regards to looking at metrics, and so we can make sure that we're doing all the right things.
That's cool. I guess, yeah, when you have that much data, you start to wonder, is there something lying in the data that would make all of this easier? But there's other things to do. There's a list of 10 other things to do. So
It is a list of 10 things to do.
Anything that you're curious about that you'd like to leave as a question for my next guest?
I think the one thing that's like sort of top of mind for me, it's something that I've been thinking a lot about, is around content. And we write a lot of white papers and blogs and things, and we get partnership from our internal subject matter experts. But I'd be curious about the dynamics of how are you deciding your content mix? Is it you as marketing? Is it leadership? Is it your product team? Do you have a full-time SME? Like, how are you putting together your content strategy and keeping up with demand for that? Because there's just so much demand for, whether it's, well, we should have a video for that, or a slide deck about this, and create a webinar about that, and then do this trade show presentation. How are you doing all of it?
Right.
I think it'd be one of my
That's
questions.
a great question. Great. So I'll tee that up and I'll make sure you get the answer when it happens.
I appreciate it.
I really appreciate you giving us a look into your world, into how you're playing the game of marketing leadership. I think it is a game, and you've mentioned before getting participation from internal team members. Gamifying it a lot of the times is a way to do that. So thank you for showing or telling a little bit about your journey. And everyone, my guest, Amy Sitnick.
Thank you, Caleb.